We are in chapter 10. That's where we are. And we've been learning about tzaddikim. We've been learning about the various kinds of tzaddikim. And that's very much what we're going to focus on at the moment as well. And specifically, what we're going to do is today we're going to learn about how much do we really want to change the world. That's essentially through the eyes, looking through the eyes of a tzaddik. How much do we really want to change the world? So if you have the Tanya book, we're on page 42 in the actual Tanya book. And let me just quickly see where exactly on the page we are. Right near the top, actually. Yeah, right near the top. I'm going to actually start from the second last word of the second line, which is exactly where we started last week, which is might be a little bit, but just so that we can run through it with a little bit of continuity. If you're looking on the screen, so we're trying to find where it is on the screen. There we go. Okay. So it's the fourth line on the screen. Again, it's the second last word. That's both on the screen and on the page. It's going to be the second last word of that line. Okay. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a tzaddik. We said that there are two kinds of tzaddik. One is considered an incomplete tzaddik, sometimes called tzaddik she'eino gomer, a tzaddik who is incomplete, sometimes called tzaddik ve'raloi, tzaddik who has some kind of negative that is still within the ecosystem of their spirituality, versus the tzaddik gomer, the person who is an absolute tzaddik, otherwise known as the tzaddik v'tov lo, tzaddik for whom life is only good. There's only goodness, only positive, only holiness in their life. And we started off to say that the difference between the two is that it's a difference between having no crime or having no criminals. That the tzaddik v'ralo is satisfied to have no crime on the streets. The tzaddik gomer, the complete tzaddik, will not rest until there are no more criminals even inside the prisons. So that's the big difference. And what we started to touch on last time is that there is a continuum of love and hate. So if you really, really love something or someone, you really, really hate anything or anyone that wants to harm them. Or if you really, really love something, then you really, really would be disgusted by anything that tries to rip that away, God forbid. So that's going to be the difference between the headspace of the imperfect and the perfect tzaddik, is how much love towards Hashem, which translates into how much does that tzaddik find negativity to be objectionable. So let's dive right in, because we're going to pick up from stuff that we already learned last week, and then of course we'll build from there. Anything at all that belongs to sitra achra, something we defined already in chapter 9, that actually in chapter 6 was the first time that we spoke about sitra achra, which is basically anything which is on the wrong side of the tracks. So there's the side of the tracks that is associated with Hashem, the side of the tracks that is the side of holiness, anything that's not in that world, anything that is antithetical to holiness, anything that is obstructive to holiness, that's what we call the other side. So whatever belongs to that other side, Hatzadik Gamur Husoinoi Betachles Asina. That would be something that the perfect tzaddik hates with every fiber of his being, with the most absolute kind of hatred that you could possibly have. They tell a story. There was a particular individual who was a tremendous Torah scholar, and he was curious about the world of Hasidim. He had never been exposed to the world of Hasidim. He had heard a lot about it. He had heard the good. He had heard the controversy. He wanted to find out for himself, what is this reality called Hasidus, and who are these people called Hasidim? So he went to the court of the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, the first Rebbe of Chabad, because he figured that's the best place where you're going to see what Hasidim are and what, how they operate and what they're all about. And he arrived there on the Shabbos before Purim. What do you call the Shabbos before Purim? Shabbos, Parashas, Zochor. Zochor means to remember. And the special parasha that we read that Shabbos is a reminder that we have to remember what the nation of Amalek did by ambushing our people as we were leaving Egypt, and we should never forget it, and we have to eradicate Amalek from the face of the earth. So in some communities, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but in some communities, when they complete that particular section of the Torah reading, they do something that we would normally do on Purim. They start to bang, to make a noise, to obliterate Haman. Well, Amalek. In this case, we do it on Purim for Haman, and here it's for Amalek. So everybody starts making the whole rumble in the shul. They basically banging on the tables or whatever, stamping their feet, whatever they're doing. And this individual who had come into the shul saw one of the great Hasidim over there. He could see that there was such intensity on his face. You would have thought there was Amalek standing in the room. You would have thought that there was an imminent threat. That he was like seething. He wasn't just knocking on the bed, like we do on Purim. Everybody thinks, oh, big joke, you're going to make a big noise. Don't do it for too long because we don't want the Megillah reading to take too long. So, this person, you could see, it was like personal to him. It was almost as if he had been a survivor. So after the davening, this fellow went over to the Chassid and he asked him, I'm so curious about the intensity of what appears to be your hatred to Amalek that, I've never seen before. So the Chassid told him, if you see Amalek as some ancient nation that has disappeared in the sands of history, you're not going to conjure up a hatred towards them. How can you hate an extinct group of people? He said, you don't understand. Amalek is not only a historical group. Amalek is a toxic mindset. Amalek is inside my head, inside my heart. Amalek is apathy. Because that's what the Torah says. Amalek cooled the enthusiasm of the Jews and cooled the enthusiasm of the other nations to respect the Jews. After having seen the miracles of Egypt, everybody was so, taken aback by Amalek comes along, just chill, relax, what's the big fuss? So that represents apathy. When a person is about to get excited and passionate for their Judaism, and then there's this voice inside that says, oh, not so fast, You don't want to become a radical, God forbid, you don't want to become a radical. Become normal, stay normal. The other thing that Amalek is also associated with, the commentaries tell us, that the name Amalek has the same gematria, numerical value, as the word Safek, which is doubt. Spiritual insecurity. I don't know. Do I really believe the stuff? Is it really true? Is it going to make a difference in my life? Should I be doing this? All those ambivalences that we have, that is represented by Amalek. And this person says, that's what I hate. I don't hate a person. I don't have this group of people that I've got a 2,000, 3,000 year vendetta against. I hate the fact that inside the human being, there's the capacity to be so dispassionate, to be so distracted, to be so insecure. That's what I hate. And that's what I want to see eradicated. So, kol ma shuhu me'asitra achra, anything that belongs to the world of impurity, hatzadik gomro soinu b'tachlis asina. The tzaddik gomro hates it. The perfect tzaddik does not hate people. The perfect tzaddik does not hate situations and circumstances. The perfect tzaddik hates the fact that there could be an obstruction to connecting with God. That's what he hates. Let's put it this way. Some places in the world, we won't get very specific, you might walk down the street and people in that place might deal with you in a disrespectful way because they don't approve of your level of Judaism. You ever heard of this? So maybe they'll call you a name, maybe they'll spit in your direction, right? What's going on over there? You're effectively dealing with people who've become so protective of their Judaism and their Jewish ideals that they get angry with people who don't behave that way. The tzaddik's not going to behave like that. The tzaddik's going to look at the individual who clearly is misaligned with their Judaism, and he's going to hate the fact that they're misaligned with their Judaism. He's going to love the person, but he hates the fact they're misaligned. That's like a parent who loves their child but can't stand the fact that the child just won't live up to their potential or just won't do things that are healthy or keeps making poor choices. You don't ever hate the child, hopefully. A healthy person, you don't hate the child. But you absolutely hate the behavior. And in fact, the reason you hate the behavior is because you love the child. If you didn't love the child, what would you care? When last did a person drive down the road and see a homeless person and hate the fact that they're homeless? It upsets me that there's homeless people. It upsets me for about 3 seconds till I turn the corner, and then I'm focused on something else. They're playing that song that I hate on the radio. Or I'm running late for whatever appointment I have. So I feel terribly bad for the homeless person. Also, I feel worse for myself that I'm running late. for my appointment. We don't hate the fact that the person is homeless. It makes us uncomfortable. And then we get over it. And the reason is because we have no skin in the game. We have no relationship with a homeless person. But what would happen if you had somebody who was your best friend at school? You haven't seen them for 10 years. And the next time you see them, they're homeless. What's that going to do? You're not just going to go home and say, oh, I feel so bad. It's going to bother you. It's going to, catch you in the solar plexus. It's like, this is bad. This is somebody I care about, this is somebody I was close to. I hate the fact that this is what they've become. Hatred, healthy hatred, is an outgrowth of love. Because I love the person, I hate what's become of them. Because I love Hashem in the case of the tzaddik. Because I love Hashem so much, I hate the fact that there are things which prevent people from connecting to Hashem, which prevents Hashem from being fully manifest in this world. That's the position of the tzaddik gomer, the perfect tzaddik. Machmas goydel ahavosoi laHashem ukedushosoi. The reason that the tzaddik is so radical in his response to the negative, toxic elements of this world is because of his extreme love for Hashem. Not love for myself, not love for my religion. People who love their religion can hate people. Can. People who love Hashem cannot hate people. But they can hate the situation in which a person is, that they could hate. Now, how does a person behave differently in these different scenarios? In other words, what's the difference between a person who is marginally concerned with what's happening to somebody versus the person who is angry at the person versus the person who is angry at the circumstances? Let's try and compare the differences, right? Okay, so you're driving down this. You will use the homeless person example just because I started with it, not because it's necessarily the best example. So you're driving down the street and there's a homeless person on the side of the road. And this homeless person really just, it upsets you. There shouldn't be homeless people. The government should take some level of responsibility, or they should get their life in order, or surely there's a family member somewhere. It bothers us. It bothers us the fact that there's a homeless person, but we get on with our lives. That can only happen if we don't have a relationship with that person. Okay, so I feel bad. It's a terrible thing. I have my life. They have. I can't take on everybody's issues. That is not a tzaddik. That's not a tzaddik. That's a very ordinary person. Then you get somebody who sees the homeless person. Now let's just assume for the purpose of our conversation that it's somebody we know, and they get angry at the person. Why are they getting angry at the person? Why do we get angry at the person who's addicted? Why do we get angry with the person who isn't living up to their potential? Why do we get angry with the person who's sleeping on the streets? Why would we get angry with them?
They're not reaching their full potential.
So we're angry at them not reaching their full potential. Right? So why are we angry at them? We're angry at them because we're actually angry at ourselves. And the only reason you ever get angry with somebody else is because it's uncomfortable. Right? In other words, let's put it this way. If a child cries at night, can you get angry with a child for crying at night? I would say child, a baby. Baby cries. You could get frustrated because you're so sleep deprived that you don't know if you're coming or going. So you could be really frustrated. But can you be angry at a baby for crying? How can you be angry at a baby for crying? A healthy person cannot be angry at a baby. It's not possible. Can you be angry at an adult for crying? Yeah. You know why? Because it makes me uncomfortable. I'm angry at the fact that you've made me uncomfortable. I'm angry at the fact that you're not getting on with your life. So now I have to help pick up the pieces. Why am I angry at somebody for not reaching their potential? Because if they're not reaching their potential, I have to somehow play a role over here. I have to somehow help them or guide them or take responsibility or excuse them. That's what I'm angry about. And the anger is, it's ego that's driving the anger. It's not because I hate their circumstances. But let's say that you've got this dear friend who was your best friend in school for X amount of years. You haven't seen them in a decade. Now you see them and their life is a mess. And you hate the fact that their life is a mess. What are you going to do? Scream at them. Maybe. Might be part of your strategy. But if you hate the fact that their life is a mess and you love them, then you're going to get involved. You're going to do something to try to help. Whether you'll succeed or not, that's a different conversation. But you can't not try because you love them. So you can't not try. Because the tzaddik, the perfect tzaddik, has such a love for Hashem, it's unthinkable to just accept a world that rejects Hashem out of hand. It's unthinkable. How could that be an option? It's just, we can't consider that. And he uses expressions over here, that the nature of this really, really powerful tzaddik, who we are calling a perfect tzaddik, is that the love that they have for Hashem is called ahava b'ta'anugim. Now, we need a little bit of a crash course in love. Don't worry, this is not marriage therapy happening over here. This is a different kind of love. If we're talking about the love that a person has for Hashem, first of all, let's just start with this. How do you know that you love someone? Help me out over here. How do you know if you love someone?
You have feelings for the person.
You have feelings for the person. What does that mean? You have feelings for the person. Okay, so what does that mean?
You want to do something.
Thank you. Exactly. This is the voice of experience. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the voice of experience. How do you know that you love somebody? Because you want to do for them. How do you know that it's not love? Because you want them to do for you. That's the easiest distinction between love and lust. Lust is, what are you going to give me? And love is, what can I give you? It's a simple formula for distinguishing. And you want to prove it? Simple. Who, now that I've entered this world, so I can speak now from experience, who has the greatest love for little people? Their grandparents. Right? So what do grandparents walk around the whole day saying, what could you do for me today? Spouses maybe. A spouse could turn around and say, what have you done for me lately? That's like a classic clash in a marriage. What have you done for me lately? But a pure love, which is like a parent to a child, and certainly a grandparent, because the grandparent doesn't have to worry about all the, the disciplinary issues, is what? What can I do for you today? It's one of the reasons that there's a clash between parents and their parents when parenting their kids. Because the parents want to discipline the kids, and what do the grandparents want to do? Give. What do you mean your child can't have chocolate? Are you kidding me? What do you mean your child has to be home at a certain time? I want to go take them on the town, When you love somebody, you want to give, you want to do, you want to contribute. That's the definition of love. Then you get ahava zuta, which is an immature love. A person wants to do to a limited extent, and then you get ahava rabba. Ahava rabba is an unlimited love, where you'll give everything for this person. The tzaddik, the perfect tzaddik, has ahava rabba towards Hashem. It's not just I love Hashem. Hashem, you're so wonderful. I really appreciate your artwork. I think the universe is an amazing place. I think you did a really good job. A few things I might have done differently, but by and large, I think you did a good job, and I have a lot of appreciation. And the tzaddik gomer is, I'll give you anything. I'll do anything for you. That's the headspace of the tzaddik gomer. So much love that I'm willing to give and do everything. But then it goes one deeper, because he says over here, Ava Rabba B'Ta'anugim. Ta'anug is pleasure. You don't know this until you've experienced it. True love is where your greatest pleasure is what you can give. When a new mother gets up to feed her baby in the middle of the night, which, quite frankly, if you had to describe to somebody who's never been a mother, they'll tell you, I hope that never happens to me. But I have to wake up in the middle of the night. What a pain. I'm such a bad sleeper as it is. I'm so exhausted during the day as it is. If you live in the 21st century, one of the mitzvahs of living in the 21st century is to tell everybody how tired you are every day. So I'm so exhausted already, I'm so tired. The thought of having to wake up in the middle of the night and feed this ungrateful little being, that's just going to cry afterwards, and I'm going to have to help them with their digestive system because it's not developed enough. Imagine telling somebody you're going to get so much pleasure out of that. They think you're mad. Ahava rabba b'tay nugim. When you have such incredibly great love for something or for someone, then to give, to share, to do for that individual, for that person, for that entity, is your greatest sense of pleasure. So in the tzaddik, the perfect tzaddik's reality, the greatest sense of pleasure is, what can I do for Hashem today? And therefore, the flip side is, whatever's getting in the way of doing for Hashem today, I can't stand that. I can't say, how could you get in the way? How could you interfere with doing what Hashem wants or facilitating what Hashem wants? Because the way that Hashem designed the world is that these are two opposing realities. When we say opposing realities, it's what we call in the laws of physics equal opposite forces. Love and hate are equal opposite forces. Love and disgust are equal opposite forces. Meaning to say, the more I love, the more I hate anything that challenges that love. The more I love, the more I'm disgusted by anything that is the opposite of that love. Kidechsiv. We see this in the words of King David that he writes in Tehillim about himself. He says, Tachlis sin'ah senesim. He's talking over here about, on the face of it, he's talking about his enemies, but the deeper expression of what he's telling us is, he's talking about the spiritual aberrations of the world. Tachlis sin'ah senesim. He says, I hated them with the most absolute hatred. Le'oivim hoyuli. They were my enemies. It's quite interesting because if he's talking about his enemies, why does he say they're like my enemies? Because he's not talking about his enemies. He's talking about the spiritual challenges that he faced. They are my enemies. Can you imagine that? Like the average person, people who we know, not ourselves, obviously, but people who we know, they don't find that the things that are prohibited by the Torah are all our enemies. Some of them are actually quite attractive. Don't you think? Okay, don't answer that. Some of the things that the Torah says you're not allowed to do, they're not my enemy. I would love to find a way to do it. There's a Gemara that says that whatever the Torah forbade, Hashem created a variable in the world that gives us that opportunity in a kosher way. So the examples are quite interesting about certain foods that taste like chaza. I don't know if it's maybe some kind of a soya concoction or a tofu concoction, that could taste like chaza. It talks about the fact that a person is never permitted to marry their brother's wife, but then the Torah introduces yibum, where it's a horrible story because it means that the brother has passed away, but then the next brother has the mitzvah to marry the wife. So it gives all these examples. So some people learn that Gemara and they say, "Oh, I wish I could access these variations. Like all these things I'm not allowed to have. I wish there was a way to have them." Tzaddik doesn't have this issue. Tzaddik's not thinking over here, oh, you know what? I wonder what a cheeseburger tastes like. I can tell you now, there's a lot of frum people running around wondering what the big chap of a cheeseburger is. I'll tell you a funny story. Many years ago, when I was in high school, was when they introduced the first kosher line of vegetarian burgers in South Africa. Okay, so I was at a friend's house, stayed there for Shabbos, and I slept over for Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos also. And this friend had these vegetarian burgers in his house. They had just become kosher. It was like a really big deal. I had never tasted a soya burger before in my life. That was it, yeah. So we decided we were going to do something on the edge of rebellion. We were going to make cheeseburgers. So, first of all, you have to understand at that particular point, for those people who are familiar with the history of Jewish South Africa, at that stage of the development of the Jewish community, the dairy products that were certified Chalav Yisrael were not especially good. Let's put it that way. We used to sometimes joke that it wasn't even milchik. There was so little dairy content in some of those products that you could probably eat meat straight afterwards. Anyhow, we didn't know anything. We had always, you always hear a cheeseburger like it's like some kind of amazing thing. So we decided we're going to take these soya things and we're going to make a cheeseburger. Which, by the way, halachically, you're permitted to do, as long as you have some clear indication that if anybody walks into the room, they can see that one of the two materials is actually parif. Fine. So we're like literally sitting there chalishing, waiting for this thing to be ready, this cheeseburger to be ready. Nobody had warned us that veggie burgers don't taste like meat. They taste like something which is related to meat, like a third cousin through marriage, but they don't actually taste like meat. So nobody warned us. So we're like chalishing, waiting for this thing. We pulled it out of the oven. The cheese, the Chalav Yisrael cheese at that stage, didn't melt. It just became stretchable. So it was like this stretchy thing that you take a bite and then it kind of trailed out of your mouth, for like a meter, without breaking. It was literally like a Tom and Jerry cartoon. If you let go of it, it was going to slap you in the face, like that kind of thing. And that was when we were cured from cheeseburgers, because it tasted like absolute sawdust. It was a horrible experience, and we were cured. So, did I become a tzaddik from that experience? No. But the point I'm illustrating is that it's very common for people who grew up following the dictates of Torah to have their fantasies about, I wonder what a cheeseburger tastes like. Some people have this fantasy of, I wonder what it would be like to speak Lashon Hara. They've never done it. They don't know what it's like. They're wondering what it would be like, etc., etc. The tzaddik, the perfect tzaddik, doesn't have this issue. To the contrary. You speak to the perfect tzaddik about a way to come up kosher to have a cheeseburger, he's going to get nauseous. I don't want to hear about cheeseburgers. They're objectionable. They make me feel sick. Not because I judge the people who make them or the people who eat them or the people who sell them. Not at all. The concept of meat and milk together, which is prohibited by the Torah, makes me feel sick to my stomach. That's the tzaddik. Why? Not because he's a strange personality, not because he's got some level of OCD, not because he's living in his own head, because he just loves anything that connects you to God, and this doesn't. So it's sick. It's disgusting. How could people engage with this? And therefore, King David continues his pasuk about having this absolute hatred for those things that are like enemies. He says, "Chokreni v'dalevavi v'gomer." The next verse, he says, "Hashem, why don't you search the insides of my heart?" And you'll see that this is a genuine commitment. It's not lip service. It's not drama. It's not for TV. This is who I am. And that's why I asked the question at the beginning, how much do we want to change the world? Because the formula is that the greater a person's love is towards Hashem, it's directly proportional to that, how much the person will hate things that are antithetical to godliness. Because I love Hashem, I hate that. Right? Because I love my family, I will absolutely hate anybody who tries, God forbid, to harm my family. I'm not going to tolerate them. I'm not going to mollycoddle them. I'm not going to befriend them. I'm going to hate them. How dare you come near my family? Because I love my family. And nobody touches my family, right? Tell me if that sounds familiar. Vehamius bera betachlis, and the other side of it is to feel absolutely sickened by things that are inappropriate. So that's why the question is, how much do we want to change the world? You can only answer that question by trying to determine how much do we care for the way that Hashem wanted the world to be. And we can only answer that question by asking ourselves, how much do we actually love Hashem? And the sad reality is, we're not tzaddikim, and anybody sitting in this room, maybe I missed something that I didn't know, and you'll accept my apologies if I called you out as not being a tzaddik when you really are a tzaddik. But the reality is, we don't even necessarily know what love of Hashem means. It's such an abstract concept. It's not part of our daily conversation. Nobody goes out with a friend for coffee, and while you're sitting there over the coffee, says, "Nu, how much do you love Hashem these days?" It's not part of our reality. It's book knowledge. It's a kind of thing. Occasionally we'll pop into shul, somebody will say love of Hashem, or we'll read the lines, Av Asoilam, whatever, we have love of Hashem. It's not part of our reality. For the tzaddik, it's real. And then he continues to tell us, just to finish the context, Ki amius hu heifech ha'ava mamesh k'moy hasina. Because that feeling of being sickened by something which is inappropriate is as much the so-called the balance, the counterbalance of love, just as hatred is. So in other words, and this is something we can all relate to. Have you ever witnessed something, either you read about it in an article or you watched a video, because unfortunately in today's world we get to watch all kinds of things that we probably shouldn't, and you look at it and it makes you feel sick. Never happened? Never happened? Makes you feel sick. Why does it make you feel sick? Because it insults, it's an affront to everything that you value, to everything that you hold dear. How could people behave like this? How could people behave like this and still stream it on their GoPro? Every single one of us, after October 7th, was sickened. We were disgusted to the core of our beings. And that's why we're so angry at anybody who was not disgusted. How can you not be shaken to the core of your morality by seeing that kind of absolute depraved behavior? How can you not? It angers us to the core of our being. And that's why we're having such a difficult time as a Jewish world right now. Because we hate the fact that some people just don't get it. And we're sickened by the fact that there are people in this world either who behave in a particularly malicious way or that aid and abet people who behave in such a terrible way. It sickens us. Why? Because we love our people, let's be honest. The meme that was doing the rounds very soon after October 7th was that we learned two things. We learned that the world does not love us as much as we hoped, and we learned that we love each other more than we believed. More than we believed, how much we love it. And because we love each other, that's why we become so defensive. That's why we're so disgusted. That's why we're so quick to post something on social media about that individual and how debased they are. Why? Because you're speaking to the core of our being. The nature of hatred is that it is an outgrowth of love. The nature of being sickened is that it's an outgrowth of love. If I have no moral conscience, I have nothing I'll be sickened about. If I don't love life, then I won't be offended by people who celebrate death. But if I love life, Ki heim chayenu, Am Yisrael chai, lechayim, right? Chai v'kai, I mean, the expressions that we consistently use, reinforcing and celebrating the value of life. V'chai bohem, that the whole purpose of all of Judaism is in order that we should live. So if you've got to override a law in order to keep a person alive, that's what you do because we love life. That's why we are so angry, hurt, and sickened by a cult of death. And then we wonder why the rest of the world doesn't feel the same way as us. Why? Because what you hate is relative to how deeply you love its opposite. We expect the whole world to love life the way that we do. And therefore we expect the whole world to be so shocked and sickened by death cults as we are. And then we learn that's not actually the case. I'm not speaking obviously for every human on the planet, because obviously it's a big world and there are many good people. I'm talking about those people who hold positions of authority that should have done better. The Red Cross and the UN and the governments and so on and so forth. Why don't they love life? Why? Why is it something that they cannot feel sickened by people who are happy to kill and live stream it? How much do we want to change the world? The answer to that question is, how much do we care about the right stuff? Because if we're not feeling the urgency that we've got to do something to turn this world on its head, then we don't love the ideal of what the world is supposed to be enough. Now again, we're not tzaddikim, we're not expected to be at that level. We're supposed to aspire to it, we're supposed to take a leaf out of the book, we're supposed to learn certain methods and things to apply in our lives. But the tzaddik is there. The tzaddik can't tolerate a world like this and will do everything in his or her power to change that. That's what it means to hate Sitra Achra. I don't hate people. I don't hate groups. I don't hate different religions. I hate a world that is happy with Jews being killed. I hate a world that is happy with promiscuity being publicized by legislators and the media alike. I hate a world in which the complete lack of respect in society has become so mainstream. I hate a world in which every person feels entitled to whatever it is that they happen to be in love with at a particular point in time, and nobody feels the responsibility to actually work and improve themselves. That the tzaddik cannot stand, he cannot stomach, it makes him sick. Now what happens when a person feels sick about something? You do something. Like they say the classics in the classic expression in Yiddish, as es tut weh schreit man. If it hurts, then you scream. Doesn't mean you just scream. Scream that this cannot be. They tell the story of this young mother, and she's got her first baby who she has to give a bath. She hasn't yet worked out exactly how the temperature. So unfortunately, she made the bath too hot. And she puts the baby into the bath, and baby starts screaming because the bath is too hot. So what does she do, the mother? What does she do? Sit down on a chair and start sobbing. Oh no, my baby's in the hot bath. Oh my, woe is to me. This is so terrible. I think we should call a meeting, and we should have a vote and a resolution against hot water, and we should picket in the streets because hot water is a problem and babies' lives matter, and who like a whole thing. What does the mother do? Yanks the baby out of the water because she cannot handle seeing that scenario. She cannot handle it. She loves the baby too much. The tzaddik cannot handle seeing a world that is an unhealthy world. Can't help it. Can't stomach it. So a tzaddik is going to be a person who is absolutely dedicated, again, the perfect tzaddik, who is absolutely dedicated to galvanizing society to change the world for better, because it's a disgusting reality right now. We have to do something. We have to change it. Whereas the person who is the imperfect tzaddik, great as they are, self-controlled as they are, developed as they are, don't yet have that same passion that it has to be different. As long as my world is okay. Again, the imperfect tzaddik says, as long as there is no crime, we're good. So lock away the criminals. I don't mind. As long as my world is safe, I'm okay. The perfect tzaddik says, how can we tolerate the fact that there might still be criminals in the world? That's unthinkable. Let's come up with a plan to make sure that there will never be criminals in the world again. So I think the take home for us, because the reason we learn about these things is not just to marvel at the tzaddik and say, wow, what an amazing human being, and I wish I was more like that. The reason we learn these things is also to take lessons for ourselves. And one of the key lessons is we have to ask ourselves, how much does it bother us that the world is in a mess? And the way that we'll rate that is how much we're willing to go out on a limb to make a difference. And the only thing that will motivate us to do that is we have to be in love with the kind of world that the Torah speaks of, or that Hashem envisaged, the kind of world that is a healthy world. So that might just be our take home for this evening. Please God, next week we're going to come back and revisit the comparison of the imperfect tzaddik and why it is that we call him the tzaddik vera loy. If he's an imperfect tzaddik, why we call him, so to speak, having the negative under his jurisdiction, under his control. Please God, to be continued.